Good morning, members and officers and members of the public, and welcome to the meeting of the City of London Corporation's Culture, Heritage and Libraries Committee today, Monday the 19th of January 2026 at Guildhall. The public element of today's meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting and will be retained for up to 1 municipal year.
Thank you, Town Clerk. It's actually afternoon, so it's good afternoon. Just in case any of you are wondering what time of day it is, a very warm welcome to the Culture, Heritage and Libraries Committee, to our first meeting of the year. Town Clerk.
Thank you. Item 1 is apologies. So we have apologies from a few members, at least 2 of whom I can see on screen, who will be observing the meeting online. So Stephanie Steeden, Stephen Hodgson, James St John Davis, who I can see on screen, Mark Wheatley, Caroline Haynes, who is also on screen, Karina Dostalova and Helen Fentiman.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Next item, minutes, and Town Clerk, there are a few amendments to make on minutes, but members are there. Yes, Jason.
Thank you, Chair. I checked my email, and I did actually email you and the clerk the day before the previous meeting to send my apologies, which I don't see recorded.
We'll get that noted. Thank you, Jason. Any other comments from members on the minutes? Otherwise, I'll come to the Town Clerk for some fine tuning.
And just quickly, are there any declarations from members that haven't already been declared just before moving on to the minutes? Thank you. So there are, I'm going to put on the screen the suggested amendments. So these would be approved subject to these amendments. So there's some wording in section 4, and you can see that in red. Halfway through the 3rd paragraph, members also noted that the final cultural strategy had not yet been approved, though a range of proposed strategies is already in the public domain, some elements of which may be communicated. If there's any comments on those proposed changes. And then further down, on section 10, so I'll just read out the final couple of paragraphs. On the 11 foundational commitments and priorities agreed on the 11th of November 2025, a member suggested the establishment of a culture fund as a further 12th priority, separate to commitment 9. Members agreed the proposal and also suggested that it should be brought to the attention of the Education Board, which it will be doing on Thursday, to explore complementarity in delivering cultural priorities, noting in particular commitment number 10, open the city's culture to London's classrooms. Are there any comments?
Thank you, Town Clerk. Everybody happy with that? If so, can we agree these minutes if nobody else has got any comments? Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item then is the actions. I do have an action on the tree situation at Keats House. I'll read that out when you are ready. Do you want me to read that out now?
Yes, sorry. So we have had an email from Rob Shakespeare today about the trees that we'll all be aware of at Keats House, and it's quite a reassuring update, Town Clerk.
Yep. The risk of tree limb failure is already reduced as the leaves have now fallen, reducing the weight and wind shear on the branches. Following meetings with the arboricultural manager, the works to reduce the crown of the ash tree at the rear of the house and library building have been assessed and a contractor identified to provide a quote for the works. The works will be scheduled to take place as soon as possible, with notice provided to site users, and we will continue to work with colleagues to ensure that the risk rating for tree failure at Keats House is consistent. And there's a further update to that. No trees within Keats House Garden are subject to a tree protection order, but as it is within the Hampstead Conservation Area, the London Borough of Camden have been notified and permission is expected within the next 6 weeks, at which point the works will be completed as soon as possible prior to the new growth season. I am meeting, Rob Shakespeare, meeting with the Environment Department's Business Planning and Compliance Officer to review risk at Keats House, and we expect to be able to already reduce the risk from red to amber and ensure that the actions and target date for reducing the risk to the acceptable norm level are up to date on the register. And the underground water leak at the rear entrance has also been resolved.
Excellent, Town Clerk. That's a very good update. Are there any more issues with the action plan? I'm seeing I'm seeing a number, so I'll come to Wendy, John, Melissa, then Adam.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going back to page 9. While we're on the subject of Keats, there was a comment sought on the bid installation close to the Keats statue in Moorgate. We had that comment.
We did. I can give you an update on that, Wendy, which is that it did go through the correct permissions in terms of the siting, but it has been agreed that it was not in an ideal location. So we do not expect it to be in that location next year. John Foley.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered about the Beckford statue. This is nearly 4 months ago that we asked about this. I'm not quite sure why it's taking so long to get the details from the manufacturer. Thank you.
Do we have an update on that?
Sure. So the reason why it's taking so long is it's not so easy that we just remove the plaque and send it back to the manufacturer. And we want to do a repair that is obviously going to be matching the original process. So the manufacturer has suggested some things, and I know the gallery team are trying those things. It was a conversation that we had last week, so that they're trying to touch in some of the areas and see if that repair is acceptable from a colour match point of view before they do the repair to the whole.
But it is taking 4 months. It seems an extraordinary amount of time to get something mended. And it can't be good when visitors are going around and seeing scratch marks there.
But I accept the timetable, and the manufacturer did take some time to come back to us. I did chase the team last week and I haven't had a response yet, but I can remind them of the urgency, and we'll try and get it done within the next month. But it's one of those things, given the nature of it and where it is, it's in a listed building, and the process that we went through to agree on that particular plaque and the design of it in the first place. It's not something we can just quickly commission, and the conservation aspects or getting that as right as we can is slightly beyond my skill set, but it's something that we want to do, make sure that it lasts as well. So it's not something that we can just touch in simply.
Your enthusiastic grumpiness is appreciated, John. We will try to get it done as fast as we can.
Okay, well, while we're on the same subject, then the Sandeman plaque, please. Let's confirm the shape of the Sandeman plaque. Which
so the Sandeman plaque sort of came across as being a bit of a weird shape in the papers, but we're assured that that is.
It is a landscape shape, rectangular. Yes.
Member partially satisfied there. Melissa.
I'll be more satisfied, Chair. I'm very pleased to see in the actions mention of an update on the Billingsgate Roman bathhouse. I just wondered whether we had a time frame for that in mind.
Thank you. Omkar, do we have a time frame?
Another one for me. Maybe you might not be as pleased as Member Foley was with the last response, but look, on this one, I committed to looking at some of the history on the Billingsgate and the reporting, and I can see the last and only report that came to this committee dedicated on the Billingsgate house and Roman bath was actually in 2011 when the asset came under the management of this committee. So just to point out, it's not something that is recent, that has just slipped off the reporting radar. In terms of reporting going forwards, I absolutely agree that we should be reporting on our assets, and I also firmly believe that should happen under the new culture strategy. What I don't think we can do is, because we've got a particular focus on one asset, unless there's an issue that we need to resolve, for us to just put resource on bringing a report, an update report on one asset will mean that things have to change and other things will have to stop so that we have enough time to produce a report which we can bring to committee. So I think it happens, and it happens once the culture strategy is done. We'll review all of our assets and then we'll start reporting on those in a way that's to be agreed up front, rather than a quick response to one particular asset.
It's a very honest response, and probably a response that listeners not going to be very happy with, but I may be able to offer some respite from what you might say in response, which is that I do know the City of London Guides Association do a lot of work and obviously do the tours of the bathhouse. Now, I do have access to a report that they have supplied to me about the performance of the bathhouse over the past year or two. So I think we could potentially share that with committee members, so at least they've got some insight into what's going on at the bathhouse. Would that be acceptable?
like to see it first, if I may.
I'll send it to Omkar, and if he's happy with it, we'll distribute it to members. So at least we've got some progress in the interim.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate what Omkar's saying there. I guess it was just understanding if it could be within this year, the time frame, for example, because then we'd be able to say to people who ask us, you know, what's happening, that their report is coming and it's coming this year. That's really all we're asking.
Deputy Chair, would you like to say something?
Yeah, yes, it does say at the bottom of our forward plan that we'll have annual or biannual reports, and the Roman Baths is included in that. So if you look on page 13.
So look, I think it's reasonable. We can, I think, come back with a status update across all of our assets, not just one of them. It should be all of them, actually, and again under the implementation of the culture strategy, because what we will need to do is make sure that the services and how we're promoting and activating these spaces is in line with the strategy. So we need to baseline where we are, which I think would be a good moment to look at the volumes of traffic and also the promotion and, you know, what's happening, how much money these assets are generating, etc.
But I think the point that the member is raising is that she wants a report in relation to the Roman Baths, and that is in the forward plan, isn't it? That's what we say on page 13, that we're going to do an update on a number of things, including that. At the bottom.
Sorry, I'm looking at the action plan. It says
Yes,
set out a time frame.
The forward plan, the forward plan, page 13 of the agenda documents. At the bottom of the table, 3 lines, third line, annual or biannual update.
This is, yep, so this is what I'm referring to. So once
Yep.
we've got the culture strategy, we should update
Yep.
on across all of those assets.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think
Yep.
this within this year is a good.
But the point of the member is that it says annual. So if we haven't had one already, then we can expect one annually within the next 12 calendar months.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Is that? Yeah.
Thank you. Adam.
At one point, I think really we're talking about the definition of culture. An update is to be provided. This doesn't seem to. I don't think this has happened, has it?
I think this might be a legacy line, isn't it, really? Because this is from when the culture strategy document was being put together. I think we've rather moved on from there.
So that was the original intent, and I know that last time Deputy Chair gave an update on the definition where I think, I don't want to quote in case I misquote, but you suggested that some culture strategies don't actually have a definition, and we were having it there as a holding line, but what had been shared previously didn't include a definition and we were open to if we actually needed it or not, rather than explicitly maintaining we were going to include it.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think we want to reflect an ambition and a vision rather than necessarily a specific definition. We've got an update on the cultural strategy as part of the agenda item, so maybe we can focus on that then. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Any other points on item 4? No, Town Clerk.
Thank you. So the forward plan, item 5, the 23 November is there twice. Apologies. I'll get that removed for the next time.
Okay, so obviously we'll get that updated. Any other points? Adam.
It's just for 23rd of March. We're due for a final draft of the cultural strategy. As we haven't had a draft yet, does that mean we're only going to get one draft, or is this quite see how it works?
Going to have a verbal update on the cultural strategy a bit later in the meeting. So I think can we answer that then, Adam? Thank you. Town Clerk.
Thank you. So item 6 is the Barbican and Community Libraries update that was circulated last week. I do have a few hard copies still here.
So we do have some hard copies of this if members would like one. Put your hand up if you need a hard copy. Rachel, you're going to introduce this and say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. other. Just wait for everyone to.
Have we got any more, Town Clerk, or is that it? Sorry, can you share? Rachel.
Okay, so firstly, everyone, apologies to you all for the lateness of this report. I was rather thrown by it coming straight after the holidays, but also, as you can see, we've been doing an awful lot in the library service. So I've been very busy doing. And just to sort of highlight a few parts for you and sort of update on them. Obviously, the main point of concern, I'm sure, for a lot of people is around the Barbican pause year 28 to 29 and Barbican Library. I will be bringing back an options paper around the temporary location of the library during that period. So I was very gratified to see that when the news came out about the Barbican, one of the main questions was, what about the library? Which is lovely because it shows how well loved it is. So there will be more on that. I'm working closely with the renewal team on that. The other thing, just to let you know, sort of subsequent even to me sending this to you last week, is that I have had a meeting with Landsec around the move of Shoe Lane to One New Change. They're proposing a different site for that now, so we're just discussing that, but it's in a better location and it's larger, so we will probably go for that. But what I don't have from that yet is a timeline, because they're still in negotiations with their funding partner. So I will again bring an update on that when I have one. And the only other things to highlight is that the Bostock room will be completed this week, and I am so happy, and it looks very beautiful, and you must come and see it. And the other thing on the back of that is that obviously we had to review all our fees and charges for our room hire, and we wanted to be in line with the other community centres, so there is now a residence rate, so I'm sure that the people you represent will be interested to know that as well. But obviously it's for information, but I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Just to say, when that move happens, I think the developer has 5 years, right, to get you back into a new library.
That's correct, and that's part of the delay, because the trigger for that 5 years is us moving out, so that they didn't faff around. Because obviously it is temporary, it's not in exactly the right location that we'd want it to be in. It's quite close to Barbican, it's not fully in the west of the city, so we don't want to be there for too long. So that's the reason for that. Thanks, Chair.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report, Rachel. An excellent report. Just on Shoe Lane Library, it seems to me that these library facilities are actually performing more than simply borrowing a book. They are now really rather critical community hubs, providing all sorts of social services facilities, which it would be extremely regrettable not to continue. I mean, can you just comment on that, or am I right in saying that?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, all 3 libraries operate as a community hub, as well as a traditional book lending provision, in keeping with all modern library service provision. And with any move that we make, that offer will still come with us. In fact, it will be it's going to be increased, because we'll have meeting rooms there that we can hire out, which we will have in the new library as well. So that will allow greater community provision and more support.
Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. So Rachel, thank you to you and your team for all that you do. This is a great update. Town Clerk.
Thank you. Item 7 then are the departmental budget estimates. That is a paper for decision. We have Declan to introduce that.
Okay, so this is Declan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yeah, it's for decision today. It's the budget estimates report. So this is simply for members to review the budgets for next year. And as you can see, it's broken down by chief officer and in further detail down the report. The main provisions to look at really here is mainly the increase between the current year's original budget and next year's budget is the cyclical works programme. Other than that, we've got some inflationary increase as well, and there's a few other minor changes which are described in the report. As I say, I'm happy to take questions on it if members would like, of course.
I see one question from Annette.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the update. I have a number of questions that I'll read them out, and then if you could answer them in turn. So, number one, the local risk, which relates to community and children's services, that full cost relates to the 2 libraries. Is that correct? The 2.7 in 25-26 and 2.8 in 26-27. That's fully the libraries, presumably.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because I must admit I never quite appreciated that they're so expensive in terms of it's more than 10% of our overall budget. So it's substantial. So thank you for the clarity. I know that the cyclical works increased by 2 million. So if they're cyclical, how come we couldn't foresee them? And could you give us just a few examples? What are the works that presumably brought forward or reprogrammed? And my final question is, we received the Chairman of Finance's very sinister update on the fair funding review from government, which will create a 60 million shortfall in future years on the surface. So how that will impact culture? Do we have any kind of plan in place, and what that entails? And sorry, just one final one. In terms of the FTEs, your report says that the reduction is mainly due in the archives, but actually when I looked at the figures, it's a bigger, more substantial reduction in the visitor service. So whilst the project works in the archive are down, but there is additional permanent FTE. So the net impact of that is quite minimal compared to the reduction in visitor services. So hopefully that won't create an impact on the tourist attractions and the destination city theme. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. So on the first one, the cyclical works programme, what we see here in the estimates are planned works. But so what happens is the cyclical works are planned over a 5-year period with surveyors. So, and these works will go across all of our assets across Cole. Largely in the cyclical works, for example, Guildhall Art Gallery, there's a huge programme behind that maintains that asset. There are going to be more updates on cyclical works, but that gets agreed in February. So obviously when that agrees, if there are more updates, obviously I can make you aware of those. So they aren't necessarily new unforeseen costs. It's just part of the wider programme, and obviously we then highlight what those will be in the coming year to members. And so yeah, on your next question on the fair funding review, yeah, of course. So just for a bit of context, in December, central government did their fair funding review assessment across all local authorities, and they changed the formula essentially. And this formula is what drastically affects the corporation at the moment. So in response to that, we're currently correlating everything that we do within culture, also within adult social care, children's, everything that's our local authority costs, and then we're going to central government for a discussion on that and how that can maybe be offset, because central government said essentially that we will have a slightly different arrangement than just a standard formula because of naturally how different we are. Because the main thing in the formula is it doesn't account for daily footfall, and obviously for the corporation that is our main reason why we have so much cost in terms of cleaning the roads, etc. And then yeah, on your last point on the FTEs, if I could maybe take that away and give you a more detailed response in writing, that would be great.
Thank you so much. In terms of the fair funding, we started to ask a secondary question. When will be there more clarity? And I appreciate some people are on finance committee, but those who are not and related to culture, it would be useful to understand the impact and plans and timelines.
Yeah, of course. Possibly in the next meeting, we could probably bring an update on it. As I say, because the negotiations are going on within the next month, essentially. So after that, once the Chamberlain and Deputy Chamberlain have had those discussions, then we'll have a clearer view of what the long-term financial situation will be for our city fund position.
Thank you, Declan. Adam.
Three points, I think, which I think Annie's already half touched on. Can we have clarity? All these funds, these budgets are on city funds, are they? That was the first question. Second question was going on the cyclical works. To what extent does this committee have any input into what the cyclical works should be? And the third one is slightly totally different, and that is monument staffing. We've seen that there has been an increase in income from the monument. Is that as a result of the new staffing arrangements? And if it isn't, should we not be increasing the staffing anyway to try and boost the people, the visitors? So those are the three things.
Okay, no, thank you very much. So in terms of the City Fund, City Estate breakdown, the majority of culture is sat in City Fund, but there are a few caveats. So for example, the monument, as you just referred to, is City Estate. If you would like, I can provide a breakdown of, so if you actually look at my next paper, yes, spot on, thank you, Omcar. You'll see the fund, and next to it there's CF or CE. And if it's CF, it's City Fund, and if it's CE, it's City Estate.
So you can fail to pick that up. Sorry. Thank you.
No, of course, that's fine. And then, the cyclical works programme, in terms of what the committee has oversight over on the funding arrangement, this committee doesn't, because it sits with the city surveyors and kind of the wider programme that they do. And then that's built into the recharges and apportioned out to each committee. And then on the last point on the monument staffing, if I could maybe get a written response to that for you, and we can go into a little bit more detail on that. Yeah, Rob Shakespeare would probably be a better place to answer that one. But I'll get in touch with him and provide a response.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands go up. So Town Clerk.
Thank you. So have those decisions been approved then?
Oh, sorry, that's still, so we need to approve 7. So can we approve that? Yes. Thank you, members.
Thank you. And so then the next item is the CHL revenue outturn forecast, and that's Declan again, and that's for information.
This is for information, but Declan, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. So you'll see that from December Q2 report to today's report for Q3, there have been no changes in terms of the forecast. Obviously, I'm happy to take any questions, but it's the same position as reported in December.
Thank you. Any members have questions for Declan? Not seeing any, so we can move on. Town Clerk.
Thank you. So item 9 is the City Arts Initiative Governance Proposal and Terms of Reference Update. We do have some proposed amendments to the Terms of Reference as shown in the agenda pack. I will get them up on screen, but we have also distributed them.
Thank you, Town Clerk. So we're lucky to have the Deputy Chair's eye for detail on this. So there have been some amends. I noticed my name has been spelt in various forms in this paper. I don't know whether it's some sort of game to see how many different ways you can spell my surname, but we can get the changes up on screen so everyone can see them. Will you talk these through?
I think Joanna might prefer to talk them through.
Chair, shall I just talk through this? Thank
please.
you. So actually the paper is chiefly about updating the terms of reference for the City Arts Initiative, which normally comes to you in May, but it is coming a bit earlier this year. That is because I am stepping down as chair as of next month. And I just wanted to get this tidied up before I pass on to the new chair. So generally it's just the usual refinements of terms of reference, which reflects improvements and good practice when we're applying it through the City Arts Initiative process. But there are 3 particular things that I just want to draw your attention to. So one is around the delegated process. So you may remember in May 2024, we introduced a delegated process, which was for public art, which was going to be installed for under a year, and public art that would be uncontentious. and not high profile. The reason for this is because sometimes there is a funding issue or a delivery issue for temporary art pieces. But the process has proved not to be particularly efficient because there are a number of steps which are set out in the report, actually, in paragraph 19. So at the moment it goes to town clerk, and what we're suggesting now is that it would be, the delegated process would be signed off by the head of profession for culture, which is what happens actually for a number of other delegated processes across the corporation. So we've done some benchmarking around that. And the terms of reference, which is an appendix 1, attached to the report. The amendments are specifically to just clarification around the criteria for when we will be applying that, which is paragraph 7.1. So item 1 for the criteria is installation and deinstallation less than 1 year, and then item 2, and these are suggestions from the Deputy Chair of Cultural Heritage and Libraries, which is then they're very good at just sharpening up what we mean and clarifying that it would delegate, the other criteria would be where it's not high profile, contentious or likely to cause reputational impact. And then, sorry, there is also paragraph 7.2, which is not, the paragraph number is not on this addendum sheet I've circulated, but it is just to clarify if there is a disagreement between the chair of the public art panel, then who would have the final say as to whether the delegated process, an art piece would go towards the delegated process or not, and that would sit with the chair or deputy chair of CHL. So it's just clarity around a number of items. So that's just around the delegated process, and then there are, and that would be introduced from the 1st of March 2026, which is what we suggest in paragraph 27 of the report. The second amendment is actually to change the name of the City Arts Initiative to City Public Art Panel, just to make it more transparent and accessible. That was a unanimous decision by the panel members. And again, that's been benchmarked with international and national public art panels. And the third item is actually to amend the number of committee panel members. So at the moment we have 4, and we are suggesting that this would change to 3. And again, this has come about through benchmarking with other panels, and sometimes there are no members on the panel, but it's to give some greater balance between those cultural experts, officers and members. So that was a sort of equity. So those are the 3 key significant changes.
Thank you, Joanna. Points from members. I'm seeing Annette's hand.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Joanna. Could we please minute our immense thanks to Joanna for chairing City Arts Initiative, because as a former member, I've been very impressed with your work, Joanna, so thank you for everything you've done. I remember we've done quite a lot of upgrades to the terms of reference when you took over, which were very, very helpful. And so thank you again. And yes, I personally am supportive. I think the name change is reasonable. It's outlined in the report very well why that should be the case. Together with the new process, I think that's fairly streamlined and reasonable if it results in efficiencies and less strain on resources. My only question, and not necessarily challenge, would be the number of CHL members from 4 to 3, and I understand the reasoning not to be overrun by committee members. However, given quorum issues and the fact that often chair deputy, you might not be available, to have a backup of 2 members might not be unreasonable. But again, if experience tells us that we always have 4 members, then are we guided by the stats? But other than that, I found the proposals balanced and reasonable.
Thank you. Just to back up your comments, and thanks to you, Joanna, because we know how hard a job this is. So You've done it a long time. You set a very high standard for it. So thank you very much. In terms of the members, I think it's fair to say this is a compromise position. So the paper might have come with 2, but it's 3. So we think on balance that is reasonable. Jason.
Thank you, Chair, and also I would back up the comments about the about chairmanship as well and pass on my thanks. I think actually the new name is I allow me to wear my share of communications committee hat with this. A vast improvement on before. I think it sort of I'm very much in favour of names that do what they say on the tin, and this makes it clear what we're trying to do. My concern again is also with Annette as a member of the committee. There, inevitably there is a great deal of interest from the public in the installation of art, and there were times when I felt actually the input of people that had a political remit to be there was important to provide that political perspective. And I think Annette makes a good point about not being able to, maybe not everyone will be at the meeting. But I think it's also important that we have representation from people at different ends of the city. So, clearly the residential wards, and there was the big debate about installation in Barbican when I was on to the Arts Initiative, but also there was from the insurance sort of end of the city, if you like, what do we do with the public spaces around there? And there were different considerations. There is, I think, public art is a very visual display of what the corporation does, and occasionally there will be issues that arise that are political in nature and not just to do with artistic merit. So I would be against watering down the elected membership on the panel. I'm happy to propose an amendment to strike that recommendation if my views have wider support.
Jason, let's any other members have a view or want to make a comment? And Adam.
It's a question of size, really. How many permanent applications do we get every year, roughly? I know it will vary, go up and down, but
yeah, we have more temporary applications than permanent. Actually, sometimes there's maybe 1 or 2 permanent applications a year. There's more temporary.
Oh, roughly how many temporary ones there are as well? Again,
yeah, off the top of my head, maybe 10.
What the point I was thinking was that so if we got 10 to 15 applications in a year, and we have a panel of 22 people looking at this, I'm just wondering if we're rather overstacked in numbers. I think it's very important what the work's doing. Does it really need 22 people?
I mean, some of these are also concepts that we look at as well. So sometimes we see things before they come in as final proposals. So we see them at different stages. So for when I'm saying 10, that might be something that is actually going to be delivered. So some of them we see at the early stages, and it's a sort of embryonic process. So I don't have the figures right at my fingertips.
I wouldn't have expected that. The question I was just thinking about is that important as this work is, and it is very important, and I do believe that, I just wondered the cost of running a panel that size, bearing in mind we're being squeezed by government at the moment, is possibly needs to be looked at.
I mean, officers are obviously giving their time. They come, there's probably 6 meetings a year for 2 hours. Then the cultural experts give their time for free as well, and then the members are obviously attending too. So I mean, I haven't done the costings, but I don't think it's quite maybe as onerous as perhaps you think.
John Foley.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just second Jason's proposal that we keep the number at 4 instead of 3, especially if one of the 3 is not available, cannot attend the meeting. I think it's important that we should have a say.
Thank you, John. I'll come to Tessa, then I'll come to Deputy Chair.
Yeah, just as the current member, I'm in favour of going down to 3. I do feel like the emphasis should be on the cultural experts, and as members, we still have the oversight with the vice chair and chair in attendance. Even if one of them isn't there, it's still enough for our role. I think we have to sort of establish what our role is as members when these cultural projects come to us. I guess if they've gone through the processes necessary artistically, and we're there to sort of assess the political city landscape, I think 3 is good to go down.
Thank you, Tessa. Deputy Chair.
So from my point of view, I think the only issue is 3 is enough as long as 3 do actually turn up. I think the difficulty is that obviously the dates for this meeting are fixed, so members have to work around the dates of the meeting. And certainly in some of the meetings I've been to, only 2 members have been able to attend simply because of diary commitments. So I would hope that if it's 4, that you're going to get at least 2. I think if it's 3, you might end up with 1. That's my only concern. And there is a question as to whether or not to call it to CHL if there is a dispute as to whether or not it's high profile, contentious and likely to cause reputational damage. So I think you need at least 2 people from CHL to be making that sort of decision if the chair of the CPAB is taking a different view. So I think it's just to make sure that we have at least 2 people around the table. That's my view for what it's worth. I mean, originally we are 4, it had gone down to 2. I raised the point with Joanna and we we sort of compromised on 3. So I think those are just the factors that, just need to be taken into account. I think 4 is probably just slightly safer simply because you're then going to guarantee 2. That's my only point, really.
Chair, can I just,
Joanna, yes.
Just make one more point. I mean, sometimes we only have one of the external cultural experts in attendance. So, if we've got 3 or 4 members, it's just quite heavy as regards political members. And officers are really only there in very specific capacities, either to do with public realm or health and safety, and they tend to focus just solely on those issues. It's really trying to keep the balance of discussion in a very healthy, transparent, and keep it very focused on the public art components and criteria that we should be assessing.
I have to say, from my own experience of sitting on the committee, I don't think that members are unduly prolonging discussions or making a nuisance of themselves. There are 22 people on the committee. We're arguing over whether or not 3 or 4 of that 22 should be members. So it's still less than 20%. So those are the factors you've got to take into account. I suggest we put it to a vote and see what happens.
I'll come to Wendy, then I'll come to Gabby. Then I think we need to bring this to a close. Wendy.
Well, thank you, Chair. Just looking at the list, it is very heavy on officers. OK, some of them are cultural experts, I'm sure, but there are a lot of planning officers and all of that. The way round this is perhaps the elected members or yourselves appoint deputies who can go from this committee if you can't manage it.
Gabby, I'll come to you and then we'll try and wrap this up.
Thank you. Well, as the 4th member of the current CHL representative committee, when it came to 2, I agreed with Suzanne, too few. And so when it's come in at 3, I'm very comfortable, and I'm the one who's more of a jack of all trades as opposed to our cultural ambassador here. And I've immediately volunteered to stand down. I mean, obviously not, but I can see the sense in 3. And I think, Tessa, if you can't be there, you're always online.
Yeah.
It seems to me we might have a compromise here about having a sort of tag team, right? So we could have 4. But actually we only need to be two there for each meeting. How does that sound? Because then we've always, wherever possible, got at least 2 members there. But we've got some flexibility. So we would have 4 on the committee, but only 2 need to attend each meeting.
That's always going to have to be the chair or deputy chair, because they're the only people who have the power to call the matter to the CHL. So, and then it will be up to us to sort of decide amongst ourselves who's going to go and who isn't going to go. That could be administratively quite challenging, I would imagine.
Jason, would you like to propose an amendment?
Yes, the proposal is to strike the recommendation changing the membership. And so I'll propose that formally. Just to, so I don't have to speak again. Just to say, and maybe these things have changed since I was there, but there were occasions where the officers, from a cultural point of view, all agreed that a particular installation was a good idea and hadn't perhaps seen some of the knock-on impacts that it might have elsewhere from a political point of view. And I think it is, if we only had one, or I just think we're potentially causing problems for ourselves. My observation from my years on CHL is that CAI initiatives tend to get waved through pretty quickly. So the scrutiny really does get done at that panel level. And that's why I think we do need that political representation there, at least two, for every meeting, to provide that context.
Thank you, Jason. John, were you still willing to second?
Thank you. I second Jason's proposal. Thank you.
Jason, do you have a form of words?
I think Jane, it's pretty clear, isn't it, Jane? It's just to strike that recommendation from the overall vote.
Okay.
Hearing the room.
3 goes to 4, I think, is what you're proposing, isn't it?
Well, no. So it's the yes. Well, it's to so the if you look at the table, it says CAI panel review of temporary artwork proposal and agree recommendation to support or not. Proposed panel includes 3 CHL members, and amend that to say 4.
So, in other words, we're removing the recommendation to reduce it from 4 to 3.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well,
yes. Okay. So we're clear on that. So you're going to take.
It's 3.2, isn't it? The proposal.
Well, it's under recommendations what members are asked to, and I'm saying we strike the final bullet.
We're going to take a show of hands on Jason's amendment. So if you want to support the amendment, raise your hand. And I think that's probably enough.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're against. If you're against it and you want your.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Okay. So that's carried.
Yes.
So we can approve. We can approve with that amendment. We can approve. Yes. Thank you, members. One final point from the deputy chair.
And Joanna, on the City Public Art Panel Governance Framework, that's just going to have to be brought into line with the amendments that have now been agreed. Yeah, thank you.
Chair,
Okay.
can I?
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just make one
Yes.
further point? Because
Yes.
actually, in the report, paragraph 26, it's just made it clear that we were had an expression of interest for a new chair. I just wanted to update the committee that we've appointed a new chair now. We had some really good applicants, and actually Joanna Antonio, who is at the meeting today from City Surveyors, will be the new chair of the City Public Art Panel.
Well done.
There's some continuity there from Joanna to Joanna. Thank you. And Town Clerk.
Thank you. And next item is the City Arts. This is recommendations to the committee on the Feltmakers Hall blue plaque.
I don't think this is contentious, so we should be able to say yes to this, but let's hear what John Foley has to say first.
Thank you. I won't be grumpy on this one. I just wanted to ask, if I may, will we get sight of the wording on this Feltmakers Hall plaque? Because there's a bit of a mismatch on page 53. It says original Feltmakers Hall, and then further down it says the third hall. And the first 2 halls, one was near Newgate, the second was in Walbrook, and the third hall, because the company only started in 1604, so it seems rather careless of them to lose several halls. I just wondered, it's going to be clear that this isn't the original hall. This is going to be the third hall. Thank you.
Joanna, do you have an answer for that? Thank you.
Sorry, that is correct. It is the third hall.
Yes.
And
So strike the original Feltmakers Hall
Yes.
from the subject. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarity. I must say the Cordwainers have the incorrect number of halls on their blue plaque, so errors do occasionally happen. But we can approve this, I think, members. Yes. Oh, sorry, Adam.
I don't want to disapprove of it at all. It's just something I'm just wondering why it comes to us when already it's previously, but the chair and the deputy chair have been approving it in the previous committee, in the City Arts Initiative.
I think these. I think they always come to CHL for final approval, Adam.
I just wonder why.
But the way that I actually looked at the history when the panel was initially set up, the panel doesn't make decisions. The panel makes recommendations to the committee, and it is the committee's job to approve. That's how the delegation worked when I looked at the history.
Thank you for that clarity, Omkar, which brings us. Greg, was it something else?
I was only going to say it is open, of course, to the committee to delegate again to yourselves, town clerk, chairman, deputy chair in the usual way if it wanted to, but that's a matter for members to decide.
Town clerk, we're going to move
on. Item 11, the blue plaque scheme redesign. That's for decision. I don't know if Joanna wants to introduce that.
Thank you. If I may just give a brief introduction on background and how we got here. As you know, the blue plaques are one of the most visible and accessible ways we tell the story of the city. They basically connect the streets of the square mile to the remarkable people, institutions and buildings that have shaped our collective history. As members may be aware, the scheme has been on pause since 2023, while officers cleared a long-standing backlog of applications. And this pause has been important, not just to clear the backlog, which we are now very pleased to say we have done, but also to take a step back and ask some fundamental questions about how the scheme operates and who and what we want to celebrate and why. And the conclusions of this exercise are included in this proposal for this committee's consideration today. And I want to emphasize that it's been the product of great collaboration, cross-departmental collaboration. It has had the input from the culture team, the London Archives, the City Arts Initiative chair and deputy, and we've also been in discussions with the CHL chair and deputy and with the equalities director. So we've gathered a lot of information from many different parts. Our ambition was very clear from the start. We would like to have a revised scheme and be able to relaunch it as more transparent, was more inclusive, more efficient and financially sustainable for future generations. And we feel that this proposal achieves just that. The headlines of the proposal include a proposed new dedicated panel to determine the applications, new set of criteria and procedures, new online form, new guidance and a new funding model. Importantly, this scheme encourages a wider representation and diversity of our current offer, which we have identified has some gaps according to our analysis of our current scheme. So we would like to bring greater emphasis on the increase of diversification in what we celebrate. And to add, to further support this, we are proposing to introduce yearly themes to celebrate specific subjects on any year, and we're bringing the themes here for discussion, for consideration of the board today. To give some context on this, we feel that the schemes are not designed to exclude any particular subject, but we feel they would give focus and help with public engagement, with communications, and would just strengthen our ability to address certain gaps of representation within our offer. So I hope that you've all been pleased with the outcome of the result, which I'm sure makes the scheme much more efficient, places it in a better place than it was before, and I'm very happy to take any questions. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Joanna. And just to compliment you and Chris, there's a huge amount of work that has gone into this because members will be very aware of how grumpy I was when I discovered what state the scheme was in, and we're in a hugely different place thanks to your hard work. So big thanks. I'm sure we're going to have some questions and points on this. So Elizabeth.
Thank you, Chair.
I definitely welcome these changes, so I'd like to add my thanks to that as well. But I do want to highlight something. So in the 1860s, when this was originally set up, the focus was on celebrating people and their association to place. And when we look at page 64, we have 23% of these plaques commemorating people. And if you look just further on at page 68 and the list of the plaques, I think as you sort of eye scan down that list, it becomes very apparent that we've skewed commemoration much more towards institutions and buildings than people. And it's very heavy on those areas. So I suppose I very much welcome the moves towards broadening the range of what's commemorated. But I wonder if at a sort of middle level, do we need some articulation of, if we go back to that page 64, that pie chart, that's where we are now. Is that where we want to be? And if it isn't, where do we want to be headed? And do we need to articulate perhaps what proportion of these we would like to have commemorating people versus institutions versus buildings? Because I think the risk is if we don't have that sort of structure in there, then we may simply be responding to a pipeline that's very heavy on the areas it's obviously historically been heavy on, which is the sort of buildings and institution side. And I also don't know whether there's a strategy, conscious strategy around that, or whether we've just sort of strayed into that being the picture. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a really, really good point, actually. I hadn't really thought about that. So thank you for highlighting it. I wonder whether in your research you can give us any clues about English heritage and how their balance is.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this question, which I think is a very relevant one and one that comes very clearly across when you do this analysis. I think this is one of the reasons why a dedicated expert panel would be very useful, to look at the overall picture and be able to set some strategy and some structure on how we want to guide the scheme moving forward. In terms of comparison to other schemes, English heritage often focus more on people in existing buildings. So we do have a slightly different structure. And I think because of the way the city has changed so dramatically over the years, and because we have a breadth of history, you know, we celebrate infrastructures, buildings. So the subjects we commemorate are much more varied than other schemes in that situation. But I agree with you that it would be good if we could rebalance the scheme towards other subjects that haven't been included.
Any other comments or questions? Tessa?
Just a question whether it would also be building on what Elizabeth said, to rebalance it to a little bit more current time, like the past 100 years, for example, rather than having, I guess it would be within the strategy, but having that as part of the strategy as sort of more relevance to more application. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's why we thought that the themes would be a good idea to give more focus and direction, and be more able to influence the narrative that we want to tell and the stories that we want to celebrate. And if you'll see in the theme, some of them also touch on the time period. And I think it is important to bring celebrations that of people and subjects that people can resonate with these days.
Thank you. Any more comments? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to raise one. The Deputy Chair and I have some concerns about the idea of having specific annual themes. Our view is that actually we should be encouraging underrepresented groups or people, actually, now that you mentioned it, Elizabeth, in terms of this strategy. So actually, I think having an annual theme actually is overly complicated. You've got to have a different theme every year. You've got to communicate that. You then rely on applications coming in that match whatever that theme is. And actually, it's going to take us quite a few years to rebalance the blue plaques in the city for the points for the reasons you've outlined. So our view is we're not sure an annual theme is that helpful. We actually think we should just indefinitely encourage applications from underrepresented groups, and maybe with a particular focus on people rather than buildings and institutions. I'd be interested to see what members think about that. Munsa.
Thank you, Chair. Just to expand on what you've said, I've noticed around different parts of the UK where they perhaps don't have access to the blue plaque, they've set up their own. There's one in Tower Hamlets, I think it's called the People's Plaque, and they've just installed something quite recently as well because they feel they've been excluded from the blue plaque here. So I think we should be aware of what's going on in other parts, especially from more diverse communities, so they may feel excluded from this process, and how we can make sure we do include this. My final point is there was some amazing work done around the 100th anniversary of the suffragette movements around women, and we did something in the city around nominating 100 women folks as well. So I'm just saying that there's some history of doing some different elements of works, and this is a great opportunity to bring something like this together. At the same time, being very aware of where other groups may feel excluded and how we can bring them in and keep them involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Munsa. Deputy Chair.
Thank you. I mean, Joanna has worked extremely hard on this, and you can see all the documentation in front of you, and that's all her own work. There has just been divergence of view in relation to the themes between officers and the chair and the deputy chair. We're both trying to get to the same point. We're both trying to encourage applications from underrepresented groups. So that's a given. It's simply the mechanism and the route that you choose to get there. So I think our view is that it is much better to be strongly encouraging applications from all underrepresented groups to apply all the time. We have suggested with a financial incentive for them to do so. You'll have seen the documentation that there's a £10,000 grant that has been made available. And what we have suggested, which again I think there's been a slight divergence of view on, is that underrepresented groups are told that there is a grant that they can apply to in order to fund the blue plaque were they minded to make an application, because it's the cost of the blue plaque that is the lion's share of the cost. It's about £1,500, £2,000. So that is the way that I think we would prefer to see the blue plaque process working. We do have concerns about themes because, for example, if you have a theme 1 year with women, what about Asian people, black people? Will they think, oh, well, it's not our year this year, we'll have to wait until our year comes round? That is a concern. We've also got to take up time, effort and energy in working out, well, what's going to be our theme this year? And so I think we would prefer to see guidance, proper guidance to go with these applications, which we can work on to basically say we are strongly encouraging applications from all underrepresented groups. This is who they are. There's a financial incentive for you to apply. Please do so within our window that we're going to open every year, so that no one from those underrepresented groups feels excluded at any time. So I think we probably are going to have to put that to a vote today, but for what it's worth, that's our view on what we are suggesting the committee should, or the committee should follow.
Yes,
Deputy, if I just may add some justification on the context of the themes. The themes are not intended as a measure to exclude certain subjects. We still strongly encourage applications from underrepresented backgrounds, and we will be making that very clear in the webpage. And if you see on the online form, that's also included. With regards to the pot that we have to use to fund certain plaques, this is intended to fund outstanding applications that cannot fund and to support our efforts with underrepresentation. Now, we will need a mechanism to decide how to choose these plaques that are going to be funded by us if we get more than, let's say, 3 or 4, more than the ones that we can fund. So the themes would also aid with this decision process.
I mean, if I can just come back, I do have real concerns about that in so far as us saying, no, the money's only going to be available for specific groups of people at a specific time. I think everybody should be everything should be looked at on its merits and a view taken as to who are the most worthy, irrespective of which underrepresented group they come from. I do have some concerns about how this is going to be perceived. Take the point that you're saying, well, it's going to be open to everybody, but if there is a theme, that is sending a message, however you look at it.
Tessa.
Yeah, well, Suzanne's kind of just said it. I think I also take the point that the theme gives focus, but I do think it would deter. People will think that is the emphasis and therefore decide not to apply that year and not know when their year is, or it sort of slightly diffuses the emphasis of an inclusive approach by actually putting an emphasis on one approach. So yeah, I think perhaps it's all in the comms, isn't it? It's in the communication anyway, and we're communicating, but as long as it's being communicated in underrepresented communities and it's clear, then I think I'm definitely in favour of not having a theme.
Are any members in support of having an annual theme? Does anybody think that is the best way to go? I'm not seeing anything, so I think you want to say something, Chris, and then we'll.
All I was going to say is, regardless of a vote on themes, which I think has just happened, fine, I have identified some dedicated resource to promote the Blue Plaque scheme going forward. So to your point about how we communicate, I think we can do that with a lot more gusto and focus going forward, as well as all the changes that have been proposed here by Joanna.
I'm not sure we really need a vote, but I mean, I think people understand where the committees come from. Do you want to say one?
And that is not to derogate at all from all the efforts that you've put in. We're 100% behind you. We really want to see this a success, and I'm sure it will be. So well done.
Thank you.
So we're going to approve. This is for decision. That's a very enthusiastic approval. Thank you, members. Town Clerk.
Thank you. So we have a verbal update on the culture strategy.
Omkar.
Thank you, Chair. So I can bring a quick update. We have been continuing to work on the draft, and we had a very, very early draft, which we did share with the Chair and Deputy. We've taken some feedback from them on that draft, and we're also gathering feedback from other officers, in particular our strategy department, but also all of the other departments that fed into the draft, and also with those in the institutions that have been working with us and will also form a part of this strategy. So we're going around and convening those kind of critical friends in order to take some feedback on what we have now. And then we will come back to committee in March. And I know, Adam, you mentioned, is that going to be the only time you get to see it? No, it's not. The wording there is final draft. It should be draft comes in March, and then in May we get the final strategy. So this committee will also have an opportunity in order to feedback on where we are once we've made some revisions to what we have now, and we'll be bringing that in 2 months' time to the committee, just so that members are aware of some of the next steps. In my previous report, we had mentioned the breakfast briefings. Those are now in the diary for the 17th and 18th of February. So William Russell is joining us at those meetings, as will the Chair and Deputy. And also there'll be an opportunity in those meetings for us to reflect any feedback from corporates, and there will be time for us to then bring it back into the position where we are at the moment and reflect on any new information that may have come to light, and then that will all be fed in before we then bring the final strategy to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Omkar. Town Clerk. Oh, Deputy Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Omkar. Having had a look at the very first draft, you will recall that when we brought the matter to committee and you approved the first 11 commitments and priorities, to which we then added a 12th commitment and priority, which was the Culture Fund. In the draft, it is suggested that there should be a 13th commitment and priority, which has come from officers and I think from the consultants, and that is to essentially upgrade one of the opportunities that was in the document that you saw last time round in November, which is to build global cultural partnerships. And I think what's being suggested is that we should upgrade that opportunity to a full commitment and priority. It does fit in very much with the destination city growth strategy, with the corporate plan and with the local plan. So I think what I would like to do is to obtain committee approval, formal approval, that matter then goes up as a commitment and priority, which is now reflected in the draft that is the first draft, which has been circulated to us. And we did discuss that in a brief meeting that we had, that that had been upgraded and that we were all in agreement that on reflection that should go in. So I've given you, I can read it out. It was in the report that's already been in front of you in November. Build global cultural partnerships, utilise the city's networks and reputation to spark cultural exchange, develop international programmes and show how culture can celebrate difference and build unity. So hopefully that is relatively uncontroversial, but I think it would, bearing in mind we've brought every commitment and priority to you for your approval, I'm kind of asking for that now, please.
If I can just give some narrative, that was also very explicit feedback we had from our colleagues at the Barbican when we shared it with them. So I mean, essentially they're doing that anyway, and it would be wrong of us not to at least include that. But one thing I do want to have potentially some flexibility on is, now that we've got the supporting information that goes underneath the commitments and priorities, what would be useful if there is some flex, because you've just seen the headline commitments and priorities, as we're getting the information underneath there, structuring them slightly differently, not losing anything, but putting them out in a slightly more logical argument may present a bigger and better picture, especially when we try and get the vision statement on there. So I'm happy to go with all of the commitments and priorities exactly as we have defined them, but I think it would be useful to have some flexibility for us to present them back in a way that logically makes sense now that we've got all the supporting information.
Well, I'm not in favour of that. If you want to have that discussion now, we can have it. It seems to me that the committee have agreed the commitments and priorities, and I think we should stick with them in the order that they are in and with the wording that has been used, unless you want to change it, and we need to make that very clear when we bring it back as to why changes have been made to a commitment and priority that has already been approved by this committee. Because at the moment, this is one of the points I have raised on the first draft, is that the wording has changed to some extent in a small way, to some extent in a significant way. And I have been pointing out to officers that this committee has agreed those commitments and priorities, and they're not really up for negotiation and debate, given that the committee has approved them. So I think if we do want to change them, and we do want to change the order and the wording, they do need to come back to this committee for the committee to look at them, see them and agree it. So I'm not suggesting that they're set in stone and cannot be changed, but certainly I would be extremely reluctant to have them changed without this committee's endorsement.
The team nods for approval there, so I think there's probably a little bit less flexibility than you wanted there, Omkar, but that is the steer from the committee.
All right, noted.
Can I just jump in there?
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying, and it comes to committee. So Omkar, are some of these changes coming from the likes of the Barbican?
You're exactly right. So,
but if there are changes and you're proposing those changes, coming back to the deputy's point, then they can still be changed. But you just say this is what you've got from outside, rather than. Yeah. So I think that's absolutely. I agree with deputy. We come back, and there may be some changes, but the committee ultimately has to endorse it. Yeah.
Thank you, Town Clerk.
Thank you. Any questions on matters relating to the work of the committee?
I'm not aware of any questions.
Thank you. Any other business?
A little bit of business. So one thing we'd like to do is when information items come, we'd like to take them as read. So if anybody wants to ask a question about an information item, we'd ask that you submit your question in advance. This is what some other committees do. Just think it would help us move through things more smoothly. Sometimes I'm not trying to stop anybody asking a question. We just ask that it be submitted, you know, the day before a committee meeting. So we're going to start doing that from March, if that's okay. I'm seeing nods, so thank you. Second thing is Vibrance. Just to remind you, Vibrance is happening next week. So do tell people about it and do come to it. Oh, John Foley's even demonstrating here. There we go. So do come Thursday and Friday. I think it's going to be really good. So do enjoy that. And then finally, just to say, I hope you're all coming to the CHL reception on the 5th of February. If you haven't replied, please do so urgently because we're really close to capacity now. And obviously I want as many members there as possible. It's a really good opportunity for us to engage with people from outside the corporation. And that's it from me. Thank you, Town Clerk.
Thank you. Do we have members' agreement to exclude the public in line with the wording set out in section 15?
We do.
Thank you. I can confirm the live stream's ended. So the next